Hey you guys, my name is William and I'm a dermatology resident, and today I thought it would be fun to do a get ready with me. So typically what I'll do to start is use some sort of primer, and the one that I've been using these days is the e.l.f. Power Grip Matte Primer. So I usually will only take very, very little, about this much or even less, I would say, maybe half of that. I'll take that amount and just take a tiny bit and apply it to my face. And I usually will apply it to areas where I know that I'm gonna be pretty oily throughout the day and where my makeup is a little bit more prone to slide. I'll apply a little bit here. And definitely on my forehead too. So generally in the T-zone is where I'll apply. And one thing I forgot to include right away was these hair clips, especially now that I've been wearing my hair more in this kind of like bang hairstyle a little bit. I will clip my hair generally like that, and then also on this side too. Just so I can kind of apply makeup all over my face, including those areas. So I'll just get started like that. I put my primer on. And I have just recently been trying out this new Nars foundation. Color is not quite right on me because I bought it online, but I do think it's somewhat close. It has a little bit of a yellow undertone on my skin. But what I like to do these days is apply about that much. And then I go in with this Tower 28 skin tint in 20. And I will mix this because this one is, at least on my skin, a little bit more neutral leaning. And so when I mix it with this Nars foundation, I find that it gives me a color that's pretty close to my skin tone. And then what I'll do next is I'll take a little bit of this half and half by Prequel, which I love. I use it both morning and night as part of my skin prep. But I also have been these days experimenting with mixing just a tiny bit with my makeup and my foundation. So to that, I'll add a couple of drops just like that. And then what I'll do next is I will take one of my foundation brushes and I'm just gonna go ahead and mix everything together in the back of my hand. And this is actually one of my biggest recommendation tips for any foundation, is that don't apply it directly on your face. Always put it on the back of your hand and then go ahead and mix it a little bit and apply very, very thin, light layers. That's how you're gonna be able to achieve that natural skin aesthetic while still wearing foundation and getting some coverage. And so I just mix it on the back of my hand, and once it's nice and mixed, I'll go ahead and apply just a really thin, light layer to my skin. And actually, next on my to-do list is to work a little bit more with the spatulas that I know are really popular in Korea. I've tried a few out so far, and I think I don't have the technique quite down yet, but I really like this brush technique because it allows me to apply my foundation pretty evenly. And I always like to start kind of more on the center of my face and then work my way out. Once that foundation is nice and kind of even on my face, what I'll do next is I'll take one of these cushion puffs, and I have a bunch of these, and I'll just go ahead and very lightly tap it on my face to blend it out. I used to think that tapping kind of harder, I would like really go to town with it, was better, but I was watching a Korean makeup artist, Rizabe, who was saying that it's better actually just to tap really gently and lightly. So that's the technique I've been using, at least in the last week. And then I'll go ahead and take a little bit more of that foundation and then apply it now to the other side. And that same thin light layer, and really focusing more of the coverage on the center of my face and a lot less as I blend outwards. I almost don't even put any right here. I'm really focusing it right here on the center of my face. Once again, with that cushion puff, I'll go ahead and just kind of lightly tap out. Until I get the coverage that I want. And of course, with this kind of like painting technique, you do get really nice thin layers, but you want to really blend it out well. Otherwise, you will see kind of those lines of demarcation at the edges. So blend. And then next, I'll go ahead and do my forehead. focusing once again right on that center of the face, kind of like tapering it a little bit as I go more towards those edges. And then I just kind of bring it down like this. And once again, blend. And it's okay if not everything is perfectly covered at this point. I actually personally don't like it when my face is fully covered with foundation, where I can't see any of my natural underlying imperfections kind of break through a little bit, because otherwise I think that, to me at least, just screams like a lot of foundation for me. And for me, I really like going a little bit more for that natural aesthetic. Get all of that out. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and do my nose. And so, you know, with the nose, one of the tricky things is that here is where many of us will produce a lot of oil throughout the day. And so it can cause your makeup to really slip and slide. I know there are a lot of makeup artists who don't even use primer and who just rely on skin prep. And I actually think that's wonderful. I am still aspiring to kind of achieve that level where my skin prep is just really pristine and I'm able to get away with it. But for me personally, just with how much oil I produce, and most of my days are either in clinic, in the hospital, or even in surgeries, I find that when I do use just a tiny bit of like a primer, such as this e.l.f. one, then I'm able to really have my makeup stay put for almost the majority of the day. And so now that I've done that, I'm gonna go ahead once again and just blend all of this out. Okay, so now here our face is pretty good. Let's go ahead and just do a little bit of our neck next. And I'll just kind of very lightly go down the neck and just try to like make sure that my face and my neck are matching pretty well. My foundation shade match is like perfect, and this step, I can be a lot more like messy with it. But when the shades aren't exactly perfect, I do like to go down to my neck and really make sure that the face and the neck are matching. And I think for many of us too, you know, our face and our neck naturally don't match. Mine don't. I feel like my face is a little bit darker. And one of the goals that I really try to achieve with my makeup is that my face, my neck, and my body skin is all really at least somewhat harmonious, especially with the undertones. And one of the reasons that I really love mixing milky toners in, it just helps kind of thin out the foundation a little bit while also still giving you a little bit more of a natural glow. So you kind of are able to achieve more of that quote unquote glass skin look, but also thin out your foundation so it doesn't look too heavy. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just look at all of my skin. See where are some areas where I could blend a little bit more, and that's what I'm doing. And also where are some areas where maybe I do want just a little bit more coverage. So typically, at least for me, go in with just a very light layer of foundation. And once again, in those middle areas on my face where I feel like I just want a tiny bit more coverage, I'll go back in and do just another thin light layer. And once again, buff all of that out. And that's the trick, I think, to makeup, but especially Korean makeup techniques in general, is to work in really light, thin layers, because that allows you to achieve that really natural look and provides you with coverage where you need it without kind of getting a very cakey look. All right, so base is looking pretty good. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and work on concealer. So I like to just wipe off, you know, some of the excess foundation. And these days, one of my favorite concealers has been this Haus Labs concealer. And the shade that I wear is shade 21, which is light medium neutral. And this foundation, it's pretty, it's medium coverage, but I actually don't think you need too much. Otherwise, it ends up looking a little bit cakey. So for me, what I'll do is I'll go on once again on the back of my hand, maybe one or two thin light layers. I often won't even use all of this, but I like to put it on here first. And then next, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab a brush, such as one of these ones, where I can really nice and thinly grab a little bit of that concealer. And this is a new technique that I've been doing, is where I just do one thin light layer like that in the area where I feel like I need the most coverage. And a little bit at the edges just to give you a nice little lift. Some days when I'm doing a full glam where I really want like my eyeshadow to pop, I actually will do an eye look first before even doing foundation, but I will put concealer on my upper eyelids. But today, because I'm going for a really natural daytime look, I'm gonna avoid that. And after I do that one thin light layer, another thing I'm gonna do is take a little bit more and just add it to areas where I really want it to maybe pop throughout the day. Just that really thin light layer. And a little bit here, because I just want a little bit of a lift. And now that everything's been sitting, I'm gonna go ahead and find myself a nice brush that I can use to really blend well. Sometimes if I'm in a rush, I'll just go ahead and actually just use that same cushion puff that I was using to blend this out. But on other days, I like to use a concealer brush to go ahead and just blend everything out. So today I'm gonna go ahead and use the BK Beauty Angie Hot and Flashy A506 brush and go ahead and just blend out that concealer that I did just place. And if you want your concealer to really last throughout the day, one thing I recommend doing is really doing tapping motions so you can really push your makeup into your skin. That's really going to help give that longevity all throughout the day, especially, for example, like when I'm in clinic and when I'm in surgery, and oftentimes when I'm doing surgeries, I'm sweating throughout the day. And so really doing this pushing technique has helped my concealer crease less, because of course, many concealers naturally are going to crease. And there are tricks we can do to help prevent that creasing, such as setting our concealer once we've blended it out really well. But many of us are gonna crease, and that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and just continue to work. Because I did let the concealer dry down just a little bit longer than I normally do before I went in with this brush, I'm having to work just a little bit harder with my concealing, but that's okay. When you do that technique of letting it dry down just a little bit before blending it out, you actually get more coverage. So if you want more coverage, that is something I would recommend for you guys. And then I'm just blending. And so I do think that one of the tricky parts of natural makeup is that your blending has to be almost like pristine, because the way that you're going to be able to really prevent people from seeing the makeup first is really by blending and making sure that you have no harsh edges. And you know, that's still something that I'm definitely working on. For me, with my makeup journey, I didn't grow up doing makeup. Even though I always did have somewhat of an interest in makeup, I felt like maybe societally, I just wasn't allowed to do makeup. And so I think for almost over 2 decades, I didn't touch any piece of makeup. And then it was only in my 20s where I was extremely oily. I was in San Diego and I was just shopping at the mall with my best friend, Nancy. And I ended up going into a Bare Minerals store, and the workers there were so nice and they helped find a good shade for me. And I ended up using that Bare Minerals foundation powder, which was so natural looking in my 20s for, I want to say like at least like 8 years, until I was maybe 28, maybe even 30. As I entered more of my 30s, that powder foundation just didn't work as well for me, because even though I am still oily, I'm a lot less oily than I was back then. So it just was a little bit too drying for me. And so I moved over more towards liquid foundations, but back then it was amazing. And so just keep blending. And once you feel like you're all blended, now is the time that you really want to set things. I really do recommend setting at this stage, because as we naturally move, talk, express, our concealer is just naturally going to crease. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and grab like a nice little fluffy brush like this one. This one is the Jessup brush that I got. Really cheap, affordable. I recommend these brushes if you're new to makeup and you just want brushes to learn from. You know, when I first started makeup, I didn't know what brushes worked well for me, and I bought all these expensive brushes, and many of them I don't use anymore, but this one I think works really well. So what I'm gonna do after that is I'm gonna take this Makeup by Mario setting powder in one, which is Fair Pink, and I'm just gonna take a tiny light bit of that one, and I'm gonna swirl it into here just a little bit, top off the excess. Sometimes if I feel like I've grabbed too much, I'll even swirl just a little bit in my palm just to make sure everything's nice and evenly distributed. And then I'll go in and I'll just lightly tap in any areas that I really want to set, mattify, and have a little bit of powder to give me longevity throughout the day. So I'm gonna do that under my eyes. And after I do that under my eyes, I'm just gonna work it around my nose. Grab just a tiny bit more of the powder. Once again, swirl it in that cap, tap off the excess, brush in my palm, and then work nice and lightly throughout any other areas where I want that mattification. I love this Makeup by Mario powder. I think it's nice and light, gives me nice mattification, but I will say it's a little bit, it doesn't last as long as maybe like the Huda Beauty powder. So if it's a really long day, I'm gonna use that powder. But for a day like today where I'm not gonna be out for too long, I'm going to just nice light. Okay. All right, so we're done with that setting step. Next, we're gonna move on to our blush. I am still playing around with my bronzer, but I think for a daytime look, honestly, like I maybe have 10-15 minutes to do my makeup in the morning max. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose a blush. I love these blushes by Ciele, and the one that I've been using this fall the most is this one in shade Kirsty. And it's just very natural, muted. Kind of reminds me a little bit of fall too. So a little bit on the back of my hand. And as you're seeing me work throughout my makeup, I think you're noticing that I'm putting everything on almost on the back of my hand before I apply it to my face. And that's really gonna allow you to get that level of control that you need for makeup. And so on the back of my hand, I'm just gonna take one of these fluffy brushes. This one is by Real Techniques, the 402 brush. Another great affordable brush that I love. Just gonna go ahead and tap on the back of my hand into the blush, but also around it. I'm just using it to really evenly distribute it on my brush so that once I apply it to my face, there's not gonna be like this clump in one area that is not gonna be very flattering. So after it's nice and evenly blended on my brush, I'm gonna go ahead into the area that I want it and just nice light tap motions. Once again, pushing the makeup into my skin, but very lightly. You don't want to disrupt the makeup that's underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit more and go on the other side. I do place my blush a little bit higher up now that I'm gotten older and I want a little bit more of a lift to my face. There's the beautiful blush. Very natural. And then I'm gonna do just a tiny bit on my eyes today. And this is a brand new palette to me by Clio that I've been using. It's the Pro Eye Palette Air 8 Latte Senior. And this one has been very natural. These Korean eyeshadow palettes are way more natural than any of the US ones. I love the US ones still too, especially if I'm going out at night and I want more of a pop. I will say with eyeshadow, I'm pretty still very much a beginner with it. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead into this palette and grab like a shade that I find is pretty close to my skin tone, but maybe a little bit darker. So I'm just going in with this one right here. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and tap off the excess once again. And then just lightly, light pressure, really just applying this upwards and kind of tapering it out. Grab a little bit more for the other side, tap off the excess. And then once again, really focusing it more close towards the base of my lid and working out like that. And then what I'll do, once again, with that same exact brush, this one is the Sigma brush, other eyeshadow brushes, and medium tapered blending. I'll go ahead and grab a darker shade brown here. And this one, tap out the excess, is gonna go right into kind of my lower crease, just to give a little bit more dimension. And I'm being pretty, like, not as precise with this as a nighttime look, but that's it. That's it for the eyes. Just give a little bit of dimension, a little bit of contour. If I'm really feeling spicy in a certain day and I want a little bit more, I'll even go ahead and just do a little bit right here. Nose contour, I'll do it at nighttime, but in the daytime, I often just skip it. And brows. So, you know, you can individually fill in brows, which I sometimes do, but if I'm in a really big rush, honestly, what I'll do is I'll grab another one of those brown ones, like the darkest shade that I was using, and just kind of go through my brow. Like that. Barely anything. I can barely even see it in this mirror. And then next, what I'm gonna do is grab this Anastasia Beverly Hills clear brow gel. This one is really good for a natural look. And I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that and just work on kind of styling my brows in the direction I want, kind of just so they're moving in one direction, and it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Okay, so we're all done with this part. One step left, which is gonna be our lips. And so for lips, the hard part with natural lips is that many lipsticks and lip shines are just a little bit too, they're strong, and so it can really throw off your natural look for the rest of your face. So the Burt's Bees lip, and this is the shade Red Dahlia. It is such a good natural My Lips But Better shade, and so many days I'll just go ahead and just use this. I'll just go ahead and apply it right to my lips. Most days, that's it. On a day like today where it's just still a little bit more, so I'm just gonna tap it out really nice and blend this and push. After that, this is a brand new lip to me by Peri Para. I bought it on Black Friday, $6. The shade that I'm gonna be using is, I'm not sure, but it's like a pinky mauve-y muted shade. And so what I'm gonna do with this is only apply it right in the center, closer to like the mucosal portion of the lip. So just a few dots, upper and lower, like that. So barely any on my lips. Then I'm gonna go ahead and take my finger or a brush and just lightly tap it out. Taper it out towards the edges, but really still concentrating it more in the center of that lip. So here's the final look. We're almost done, you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and now set my face with some setting spray. So let me go ahead and grab that. Might seem a little bit intense. They're both pretty mattifying, but for someone like me with oily skin, I think it works really well. First one is this Urban Decay All Nighter, has been one of my OGs this year. And so go ahead and just shake that up a little bit and spray. And what I like to do next, this little fan that I have, and just work through. Ooh. This always gets me in a good mood. And a little bit more. All right, so now that that's done, what I'm gonna do next is actually go in with my one side. So this is one of the heaviest hitters. It's like a hairspray almost for your skin, and it's just gonna really lock everything in and make it budge proof throughout the day, which I need in clinic when I'm sweating and in surgeries when I'm sweating and wearing masks. So go ahead and shake that up. Keep this, don't go too close to your face, go a little bit far from your face, close your eyes, don't breathe in. Now my makeup is locked and ready. As you can see, both of these setting sprays have just given me a really beautiful natural shine. Many days when I want like a very glassy skin look, I just leave it here. I don't even do anything else. Some days when I do want just a little bit of mattification in certain areas, I'm gonna go ahead and take this new setting powder that I've been using. I know it's really raved about and big in the beauty space, so I wanted to give it a try. I think I still haven't formulated my final opinion on it yet, but it's the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish in Shade 1. What I'll do is just take a very tiny bit of this powder. This is a finishing powder, not a setting powder. So take a little bit, tap off the excess, and just go into areas where I really want my pores to get a little bit more blurred. So for me, that's right here. It's usually my T-zone, but here I have some ice pick acne scars from when I had really bad acne in high school and in college. So just went up there, and then I'm gonna go on my nose. And it's just really gonna give you like a nice pore blurring effect. Tap off the excess right here where I have a little bit more of those acne scars. Right here too. And down here, my nasolabial folds, chin, upper lip, and then a little bit on my upper eyelids too, eyebrows. And one last step is, you know, for me, I love having a glow right here on my cheek. Just I'm like turning, but one area where it can kind of throw off the look is if you're too glowy out on the edges. So I take a little bit of that airbrush and just go right here on the edge, like that. So I still have a natural glow right where I want it, but a little bit more mattified out here. All right, you guys, so this is my final makeup look. Let's go ahead and take off these clips. And hold please as I go ahead and put some just hair gel in because my hair is very textured and gets out of control. I'll be right back. Hey guys, so here's my final look. I'm really happy with it today. I think it definitely, to me, feels natural, but a little bit more like pore blurred, a little bit more even, and still has some of that color and dimension. So this is honestly what I'll do many days for a really fast makeup look. Sometimes even more simple than this, but generally is my everyday makeup look. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.